welcome to the last day of our camp dedicated to D4, D5. Today we continue with two very interesting and instructive lectures. And do not forget that after these two lectures, we will dedicate some time to the Q&A session where you can ask me different questions concerning the material or modern chess in general. So without wasting too much of your time, I suggest that we start the lecture. Good luck and have a nice time.
Okay, let us start, please. Here we go. Today we are going to study some nice lines in the Tarrasch opening for white, and also some nice lines in the Queen's Gambit accepted. My approach this time is going to be, this approach I like very much, and quite often, whenever it is possible, it's not always possible. Sometimes I choose lines which lead directly to the endgame. Here there is a question if we have Ragozin included. No, we have Ragozin avoided. So we avoid Ragozin with this move order. So this time, whenever it is possible, it's not always possible, we will play endgames. This is a very good thing. You should always put some variations which lead directly to an endgame in your repertoire every now and then, whenever it is possible, and that will force you to become a better endgame player. So you can have also one variation with queens on the board, but whenever it is possible, it is very, very useful. And exchanging queens doesn't mean that we are playing for a draw, neither with white nor with black. It means that we are playing for a win with minimum risk. So in the Tarrasch variation, however, I tried to make it work, but it wasn't possible in this line, C5. So here we play C takes D5, and now there are two entirely different variations, E takes D5 and C takes D4. This C takes D4, we start with that. This is, of course, an old variation, but it became again fashionable in the last years. These are trends, they come and go. Now the best move for white is Queen A4 check. Black needs to play Bishop D7, Queen takes D4, and E takes D5. So here, white can win a pawn with some compensation for black. White can even avoid winning the pawn with Queen takes D5, but the best option is to accept the offer. For example, if we play such a move, it has been played several times, it is interesting. Black should play, the most precise move is Knight F6, and now we have some options like taking on D5 right now on this particular move. A move like Bishop G5 is also interesting, but unfortunately, for tactical reasons, black seems to be doing okay, like to get an equal game. For example, here I analyzed a lot. This is the best move. Black is doing something like very forced. He needs to play very forced. Let me explain the lines that we won't be playing and why. For example, here, white is very close to having a good position, really very close, but I analyzed this move. Black can play here. All these are pretty much forced moves. Take, rook takes, and initially I was very excited for this position because, as I told you, whenever we have the chance, occasionally we should be playing endgames. And here, white is very close to having an advantage, very, very close. But unfortunately, black with precise moves can equalize. For example, if black plays such a move, this is totally wrong. We develop our pieces like that, or like this, Bishop D3, and white is better. And after this, you will be surprised to know that even this is very good. Yes, this, for example, is a very nice advantage for white. Our king is safe on D4. There is never any rook C4 check or rook E4 check. And in fact, quite soon after some exchanges, the white king will eventually capture the D5 pawn. So, in fact, we were quite close to for this bishop g5 to be working, but with very precise moves, black can equalize, and it is not acceptable. So we have to settle for this move, queen takes d5. And now the best move for white is for black is knight f6, surprisingly. It takes deep analysis and knowledge of positions to realize that this very natural move, protecting b7 and later playing knight f6, is in fact inaccurate. Make no mistake. Here, both white and black have several moves. Black is not losing by force. Do not expect a huge advantage by force, and do not expect, this is completely unrealistic, to cover every possible continuation with black, because there are maybe around 2,000 of them. So we cover the most basic plans and ideas. However, there is always room for novelties, but our plans remain the same. So why is this knight c6 a bit premature? Because we play here. Look, the reason is very deep. Black will develop. The best move is queen d1, or other moves like queen b3, for example, are also playable. But the best move is queen d1. Black does have some compensation. However, black needs to castle short. Practical examples have shown that black needs to castle short. He cannot afford to castle long. But because of this knight c6 very early move, now something deep is happening. Black will play a move like bishop c5. For example, this move, queen b6, I don't believe it has ever been played. Queen b6 intending low castle, and yet it is playable for black. Again, the computer will show you big advantages for white, but no forced win or anything. So all these moves are playable. They do not guarantee a win for white. White has objectively an advantage no matter what, but even strong players with the black pieces keep on playing this line because they know very well that nobody can memorize anything and that the positions are practically playable. Yes, this queen b6 move is playable. The opening is not refuted. It is playable. Although after e3, sometimes, as you will see, we develop our bishop to g5. This is the ideal position for white, if he can develop his bishop out before playing e3, but we cannot always do that. For example, this queen b6 move, we are forced to play e3, and he castles long, and now white is still much better. We will play a move like bishop d2. Black does have some attacking possibilities, but the problem for black is that his king is also a bit weak. There is an important chess principle which says that the player who sacrifices material, be very careful what I will tell you now. The player who sacrifices material for the initiative, for some attack, for example, here black sacrificed a pawn, or he could have sacrificed a piece for 2 pawns, for example. So the player who sacrifices material must have a very safe king himself. And if he doesn't have a very safe king, if we are a pawn up, for example, and both kings are weak, and both players have an attack, then usually the player with the extra material prevails, because he can always sacrifice back the material at a good moment, and he has this important way out of his problems. So here, the position is playable. For example, a move like bishop f5, it looks a little bit scary, but nothing much is happening. For example, here, and I like this move, we are ready to take at some moment on c6 and block with knight d4. The position is playable. Many possibilities. Let's still explain. Let's go right from the start. We are here, c d4, check, here, take, queen takes d5 is the best move, and we are saying that knight f6 is more accurate. Why? Because after knight f6, after knight c6, as you will see, we will be in most cases allowed to play bishop f5. So we start with knight f3, knight f6, queen d1, and now the most logical move is finally bishop c5. If we tried queen b6 and we play e3, we tried bishop, we can try bishop b4, then we defend like this. bishop here, e3, bishop e2. The problem there is always some compensation, especially for blitz. Yes, here, yes, especially for blitz, there is compensation. But the problem for black is that we have a central pawn up, and this is always very important. For example, black plays here, of course, there is compensation, some compensation, enough to keep on playing. Black has all his pieces developed, and he won't resign, of course. Our extra pawn is this pawn on e3. It will take a long, long time to win thanks to this extra pawn. So what we can do here, play normal moves, stabilize the position, defend for some moves. We are forced to defend for some moves, no matter if we like it or not. That's why black is playing this opening. Black doesn't want to lose when he is playing this opening. He wants to win, to make a draw. So by definition, we are forced to defend for some moves, but at a very high cost, a whole central pawn up. So let's check now why knight c6 is a mistake. Because yes, bishop b4 is playable, but not good enough. Queen b6 is also playable, but not good enough. This move is in the spirit of the variation, and this time we don't play e3. Very deep analysis. Even very strong grandmasters played e3 here, but there is another possibility, available possibility, which is much stronger. So e3 is playable, but the tempi are good enough because of this knight c6 move to play this very strong move. The idea of this very strong move, which you must memorize, is to play bishop g5, and if queen b6 double attack, what is the problem if we play bishop g5? We want to play bishop g5, but what is the problem? The problem is this double attack. Yes, but with the move a3 played, let's check, a3 played, our plan is not b4, at least for some moves, but let's say he castles. Look, now this move is available, intending e3, and this time if queen b6, then we play e3, and look, he takes on b2, and we take here, protecting the knight, takes, and knight a4 is trapping the queen. That's the idea of the move a3. Also to control this b4 square, and sometimes maybe after many moves to play b4. But the idea is to capture the queen in this position. So I repeat, after knight c6, very deep idea. It can be found only with thorough analysis, because the computer, no matter what, gives a big advantage for white here, no matter what he plays. g3, for example. But here, knight f6, queen d1, our plan is this a3. So bishop here, a3 intending bishop g5. He can play queen b6. If he plays queen b6, he stops bishop g5. We have to play e3 this time. Look, if he plays this, he stops bishop g5, but he misplaces the queen. We play e3, but this queen is misplaced now, some knight a4 ideas. So we reach the same type of position where black again will not resign. He does have some compensation, but less and less. Yes, what we want to do, in all cases, we will be a pawn up. In all cases, black will have some fast development, but some small details are very much to our advantage. For example, here, he will need to, because we threaten knight a4, he will need to move his bishop from c5 back to e7. So we have more time to develop our pieces and little by little defend for many moves again, and little by little consolidate, exchange pieces, and start playing for a win. The good thing is that it's very difficult for white to lose here. You need to blunder something. So here I analyzed various possibilities. For example, queen c7, bishop g5. If rook c8, bishop g5. If a6, bishop g5. Our plan is generally bishop g5. If he plays h6, now, for example, we can play e3, and this is an improved version because this h6 is not useful. However, this is even better, bishop f4 at this time. And black does have some advantage, but not enough. If he takes here, he is losing once again. So after knight f3, here, a3, what is the best for him? Maybe queen e7, again bishop g5, for example, castle short. If he plays this, I cannot play knight d5. Look at this, he takes on f2. There is a combination here. So I need to take here, e3, castles long, queen c1, for example. Yes, there is some compensation, but look, some knight e4 ideas, some knight d5 ideas. His king is across the c line here. So these details are turning the position towards white's advantage. So here, of course, black will find a move not to blunder something. For example, here I would simply play bishop e2, no time for combinations yet. Bishop e2 to protect, and we combine counterattack and defense. Are these positions playable for black? In a practical sense, yes. Theoretically, white is better. If a match between computers, white would have won. But a match between players, it is always playable. So this is what is happening here after knight c6. So black should start with knight f6. Very deep. Most of the opponents here with black will be playing knight c6 without having a clue what is happening. For most players with the black pieces, knight c6 and knight f6 is exactly the same. But there is this detail. So here, this is the correct move. Now taking on b7 is too much. Queen b3 is playable. Queen d1 is playable. Again, I choose this move. Black needs to be precise. He has to start with bishop c5. Look, I avoid knight c6. We play knight f3. Once again, if knight c6, a3, intending bishop g5 and this nice trap with an advantage for white. So if black is careful, I haven't seen many players being so careful yet, he should castle. And now the same idea is not working. If we play bishop g5, he will play queen b6. This a3 move is again playable intending bishop g5, but black will play some other move like queen b6, for example, with some compensation. So here I chose this move e3. No bishop g5 tricks anymore. Black showed by postponing the move knight c6, black showed us that he knows what he is doing. So we have to play this e3 move. Several games have been played by this position. And as Caruana used to say, novelties come and go. The understanding is what remains. Do not base yourself or your opening repertoire in one novelty. I have seen this typical mistake so many times. Some player finds a novelty with black in dubious Slav variation, and he starts playing the Slav because of that. No, even if the novelty is good, your opponent will find you can play it in one game. That's it. Your opponent will find many other ways to sidestep it, even if he doesn't know theory. So you should play an opening only if it is very good and you like it, not based on one move here. For example, I analyzed for hours this move first. So what? That doesn't make any difference. So knight c6 this time, we develop queen e7. Can black play rook c8 here? Of course he can. Can he play rook e8? Of course he can. But look, rook e8 doesn't look so natural, because we should put the rooks on the open files, on the D and C files. So the most precise move is queen e7. We castle, and here is the position. Now, in most cases, black has played this move here, which is not at all forced. Yes, what is important to understand is the nature of this position. For example, black can play this move. It is playable. I am sure 100% the computer gives an advantage to white. For example, this is a novelty for me. For example, I'm sure this move is playable, but maybe this is the right choice. We need to think. I will be more than happy to play this move and free our play. Bishop takes d4, e takes d4, and the bishop is coming to d3. So, for example, even here, objectively, black has a bad position, but he won't resign. Of course, many pieces are still in the board, and the position is totally playable, although objectively better for white. There is no question about that. Yes, but still it is totally playable. For example, I play this move. Black will put his pieces in the center. Maybe I need to play this move, rook f to e8. And yes, white is better, but as we have already mentioned, white is forced to defend for several moves. So we need to be patient in this line and try little by little to exchange pieces, possibly with this move, and patiently play here, start exchanging pieces. We are ready to also offer the pawn back and reach in some way some kind of better endgame, for example, and the game continues. Yes, it's far more important to understand, instead of these moves here and these little moves here and there, it's far more important to understand the nature of this position that you will be playing. So queen e7, castles. The best move appears to be rook f to d8, but by no means it is forced. Black can play this, for example, but this is not a good move in my view. We have several ways to play, at least two very good ways. First of all, as always, the typical move bishop d2 is playable, intending little by little to develop the pieces. However, I can see at least two more good moves. Who can help us here? Without computers, we don't need computers. We face this knight e5 move. What do you think white can play here? I see two very good ideas. Two very good ideas. One very nice idea seems to be this one, bringing the knight into the center. But another good idea that I see is to take this knight and then look, it is important which move to play now. It is important, not just any move. We want to deprive black from gaining this very strong post. Look, if we play such a move, now this bishop is very powerful on c6. It stabilizes the queen side, and of course it is attacking. Yes, so now white, of course the computer may tell you, oh no, I calculate 10 moves in a row and white is better in a rook endgame with one pawn up or something, or with one pawn down. Yes, but for humans it is different. So we take here, and the correct move is to take over this diagonal, play here. I see that this diagonal is not available. Of course, if he would place here, I will be more than happy to exchange. And now we can even offer at some moment the extra pawn back here. We can play, for example, such a move, bishop d2, and if necessary, we can offer the pawn back to exchange some pieces and get an endgame with a better pawn structure, for example. Yes? So let me create an example. Now I create by not playing objectively the best moves, but let me create an example like this. So here, a good move could have been this one, for example. Not a very good example, but a good move could have been this one. And let's say force an endgame. Yes, unfortunately, the example is not so good at this moment, but here white still has some advantage with absolutely no complications. So we are ready to do that. So bishop e2, queen here, we castle. The best move seems to be rook f to d8. And now there are some games that have been played here. The computer is no help. Queen b3 and queen c2, both moves are playable and similar. Queen c2, we are not worried about this knight b4 move because the knight is misplaced on b4. For example, here black can play this, or black can play here, of course. And then a move like bishop d2, bring the pieces in the center, and you will see in the game session, there are some games played here, some compensation, and generally white is better. I tend to prefer this move. After rook f to d8, I tend to prefer this move, which is, yes, on knight b4 move, we have to play queen b1 temporarily, yes. After queen c2, knight b4, we have to play temporarily queen to b1, but then we will chase away the queen. So here, we will chase away the knight with a3 at a good moment. The nature of the position does not change, yes. For example, he plays here. What is the best move? We cannot know the best move. This is impossible, impractical, and totally useless. We will calculate the best move. Yes, for example, e4 might be playable, although it's a bit unusual in these positions. However, with this knight away from the central squares, this can be useful, and then we want to develop the bishop. Here, a move like a3 and b4 can also be good. Here, b4, here, and I quickly play my bishop to b2. Yes, there is some slightly annoying compensation here. We need to be careful. We are forced to defend, but objectively, white is better. He can play the pawn to g6, of course, and we calculate. g6, I would play e4, for example. Yes? So rook f to d8, queen b3 is also possible. And if he goes, for example, bishop e6, now we go queen c2. And what is the idea? There is a hidden trap here. If he plays bishop e6, what are the possibilities? Small possibilities to get this particular position. Very big possibilities to get a similar position with all these possible moves. Yes, I am now explaining to you the correct way of thinking and of studying openings. This is the correct way. If you memorize lines and memorize, two things will happen. First of all, you won't get them. And secondly, you will forget them after some time. So you need to remember some line important as best as you can, and as more as you can. You need to repeat the lines, but do not expect your opponent to play exactly like it is in your notes. If this was the case, chess would not be waiting for you, for me, or you. Chess would have finished about 150 years ago, if the possible cases were so little. So here, the hidden trap is this. After rook c8, we have this very strong move because he cannot play, for example, bishop d7. Of course, he cannot play bishop g4. We take it on g4 and take. Why can't he play bishop d7? Can you see why he cannot play bishop d7? I believe you can. Very easy. After bishop d7, white goes knight d5, and he gives many checks or checkmate on d7. So here we go here. So knight c6, bishop e2, queen e7, castles. Here is just one possibility. Queen c2 is playable. Queen b3, very similar and playable. After queen b3, our opponent can play again several moves. Let's suppose he plays this move. It has never been played before. What should we do now? We start calculating, yes, after bishop there. Is there a forced win or something? No, neither by us nor by our opponent. Usually, I will tell you now one important principle. When we are faced with a novelty or with a move that we don't know, he plays, for example, this move. It's very often we play the same move that we would have played in a similar situation. The move is bishop d2. So this move is quite possible. I don't see any reason why not to play here. Look, don't try to punish the mistake immediately with such moves. Most likely they are not good. We need to develop simply like this. And if his move is bad, it will be apparent by itself. So let's say he plays this. Our plan is to play here, maybe later bishop e1 and start exchanging pieces. Let me play one good game for white. Here, bishop e1, for example. I'm thinking for black what to play. For example, here, I take it. He takes it. I take here. He takes here. I play rook d1. Yes, here. And let's say queen a4. I'm not even sure if I play good moves. Queen c4. So he takes here. Queen takes h5, h3, for example, very quiet game. g6, little by little we come here, we try to play b4, a4, trade pieces, take our pieces out and try to play for win. That's the procedure. So this is what we need to know. Let me tell you something. I found some amazing idea because I'm so eager to play endgames. I found some amazing idea which almost works, but not exactly. It gives white a very small advantage, but it seems that black can equalize. This line, I will show it to you. It has never been played before, but let me remember it. It's like a really very strange line. It seems almost like it is blundering a piece. So here, check, here, take. Just give me 1 second to remember it. Yes, take with the queen immediately, which is not the best move. Yes, knight c6, queen d1. He takes, we take, and this is the correct move here. And if you can believe, this is almost, which is blundering a queen, is almost a very good move. You can analyze it for yourself. After bishop b4 check, we simply play bishop d2. And with very precise play, black can equalize in the end, but it would have been a shocking possibility that does not seem to be working. So let's check now a few games with this line. Let's see how very strong players are playing. Let's check the game, just a second, between Wesley So and Dmitry Andreiki. This is a bleach game, I believe. So knight c3, c5, takes. This check is the most accurate move. Take. And we know which move black should avoid on the very first moves. Black should avoid the move knight c6, because this gives the chance for a plan with a3 and bishop g5, based on calculations and concrete analysis. Black correctly avoids the fast knight c6. Black correctly avoids the fast knight c6. And black mistakenly plays knight c6. Who remembers, we can play e3 and transpose to the what we described as main line. Who remembers the best move here, please? The best move is a3 intending bishop g5. In fact, in a standard game, you could even stop your analysis here. Your knowledge could stop even here. That's the least possible, the less you can do, but it is good enough. So a3, Wesley So knows very well what he's doing. He's one of the top theoreticians. He played, black played, Andreikin played this, and bishop came to g5. There is no knight d5 threat for the moment because of bishop takes f2. For example, if here, look, that's the trap, this move does not work. Black plays here, and he has this very good idea, check. And now if bishop e3, knight g4 check is coming. So the position is still playable here and here, but this is not what we want to do. So if h6, we take on f6. Castle long, e3. Quite often in this line, you will see that we are not worried about any of these attacks, discovery attacks, like here. Bishop e6, bishop f5, bishop g4, or bishop h3 do not really threaten anything. Black played here, and queen a4. Black played this, and Wesley So played bishop f4. Is this the best move? He calculated it. Did he know already we are on move 14? Did he know exact theory? Absolutely not. Zero possibilities. Exactly zero. So he calculated and he played this move, which appears to be good. There are maybe even better moves like queen f4. So in the end, he managed to win the game. Black sacrificed some material. He didn't have enough compensation. What is annoying about this line, however, is that we are forced to defend for some moves. So if you are a player who likes to attack, unfortunately, there is no way to avoid it. You need to defend for some. So let's continue with this game. With the white pieces is one of my favorite strategical players, Wang Yue from China, who is not playing much in the latest years. So this game was played in 2012. Wang Yue is playing with another Chinese player, Wang Chen, and already since 2012, he seems to know exactly what he is doing in this line. So queen takes on d5, knight c6 was played, knight f3, a premature knight c6 here, queen d1 here, and a3 is the move. I repeat, if here bishop d2, the bishop is anyway going to d2, but a worst version for black because his bishop on b4 does not seem to be good enough. If queen b6, again, we are not winning by force or anything like that. We will continue most likely with e3, castles, and a move like queen c2 or bishop d2 even better. Bishop d2 even according to the computer. Of course, we are not afraid to sacrifice on b2. And here it seems that we get good counterplay and a nice version of these lines. For example, your opponent can be crazy enough to play this move, for example, I'm saying, yes? This is a novelty that I just thought right now, yes? I am sure the computer will find ways for white to have possibly a decisive advantage, but over the board is not simple. It's not simple. And of course, it has zero value to lose the game and then, just like most players do, rush back to our computer to safe environment and ask the computer and then claim I was better, I was winning and all this. Yes, this in sport has absolutely zero value. Ifs in sport have zero value. Trust me on that, because I have been a top player, let's say, at least in my country, for more than how many? 25 years. So G5, I'm sure it is. Can we foresee this novelty? No. Is there a reason for us to do so? Absolutely not. Yes. What is happening here? Guess what? We calculate. So we go back. Bishop c5 was played. Wang Yue played this move, and he played this move. Very precise chess. Queen b6, and black discovered that after here he cannot take on b2. If he takes on b2, surprisingly, the best move is not knight a4 directly, but the best move is to first take here, and then knight a4. Yes. So e3 was played, bishop e7, but this is, of course, a concession. I don't believe now we can take on f6 and take on d7, because then he will take on b2. So white played this, which is again the best move according to the computer. Again, b2 pawn is immune. Bishop here, queen c2, and we are out of book, of course. Black could take here and play, for example, such a move. White can safely castle like this, castle short, and put his bishop here. And there is some general compensation, but later, after some moves, our bishop may come here to protect the king, and possibly there is not enough compensation. So here, queen c2, h6, bishop here, and the game continued like this. Takes, bishop g3 as expected, and black won, white won in the end. He protected everything, and he won in the end. For example, if rook b1 was not possible, white may switch to maybe such a position. Let's say here, queen here. I play a random continuation from my mind. Now we sacrifice the pawn back, but we have two very dangerous bishops and a nice initiative. In the end, what will happen? White will win the a pawn. He will have 4 against 3 on the king side, preferably with a pair of bishops, or maybe even without it. And he must show good technique to win the game. Let's check one last game here. So let's check. You will see in the game session a few more games. Let's check this game again with the same mistake. Oh, queen takes. No. Here. Yes. Okay. By transposition, with transposition they got this, some inaccurate moves. So queen d1, bishop c5, a3 once again. After h6, we may play bishop f4 even. So here, b4. This is not the best move, but the computer says that it's still okay. Bishop g5 is the best move. Here, bishop g5, e3, yes. Queen c2, bishop here. So if he takes, it's already familiar to us. You see, this is far more important. The move g takes f3 is familiar to us already. It is a typical move in this position. We are not worried to take with this pawn. Indeed, he castles, we castle short, and we know we have some plan in our mind. Yes, we want to play here and possibly put the bishop here if necessary. And we seem to be doing very well. So in the end, you see, White is very solid. This is exactly what he wants to do. He traded the pieces. And what is this nice combination? He traded the pieces, and this is the worst, the most, let's say, frustrating way to lose the game with black. You sacrifice, full of happiness, you sacrifice a pawn and full of pride, and then everything is exchanged and you lose the endgame with 1 or 2 pawns down. So let's also check now 1 or 2 better played games. This is a rapid game between Salem, very strong player from United Arab Emirates, and Aryan Tari from Norway. Let's check this game. Knight here. This is a rapid game. C d5, c takes d4, check, take, take, and queen takes. No matter what, the computer gives a big advantage here for white, especially Stockfish. But still, Aryan Tari plays this line, at least in rapid game. Look, he is careful with the move order. He postpones the move knight c6. So castles, and e3 now is the best move, and queen e7, bishop e2, only now knight c6. Castles, rook fd8 is the most common move, and then we play queen c2 or queen b3. Of course, many other moves are playable and acceptable, and black played here. We have already commented on that. White played the move bishop d2, possibly because it's a rapid game. I am attracted to this continuation, and bishop f3. This is what probably I would play. Bishop d2 is simple and good also. So here, white played knight d4. Black went back knight c6. He is fighting for this post on c6. Now, one thing is for sure, that this move is very uncomfortable for us, because his bishop is standing very strongly on c6. Shall I play here? No, this is totally wrong. We totally mixed things up. Here, black has a lot of compensation. This gf3 was happening, and we had a light square bishop, and black didn't have one. Here, none of us has a light square bishop. Black has obviously a lot of compensation. Yes, probably he is much better. For example, here, queen h3, black has a strong initiative. This is not how we want to play, of course. So let's see. After knight d4, typical idea, he goes back, and in fact, it was only a repetition of moves. Knight f3 was played, knight e5, and queen c2. Now, black played b5. What is happening after bishop c6? I wonder. There is a possibility that white wanted to sacrifice the pawn back by playing here. I'm not sure at all, though. Take, take, rook takes, and bishop e3. For example, rook d7, and now a move like rook d1 or rook to e1. Yes, still white seems to have some advantage with a pair of bishops. Okay, so in the game, after these moves, black didn't have much compensation in the end, and he lost. You will check the whole game also by yourself. Now, we continue with another line. This time it's the Tarrasch, a very different story. Knight c3, c5, Tarrasch with cd5 and ed5 this time. So here we play knight f3, and now there are 2 entirely different variations. These variations can lead to the same position if white chooses to, or they can be entirely different. It's our choice. And I play in a way that the 2 lines are very different with each other. Knight c6 and knight f6. I very much prefer to face knight f6. So knight c6 first, this move. Let me promote the line. So here, as you may know already, by far the most common move is g3 with lots and lots of theory. However, there are other possibilities as well. So I chose this move, which leads directly to a risk-free endgame with the pair of bishops. This is very popular, and it scores very well for white. d4, these moves are pretty much forced. Knight is going to a4, and now black needs to take the pawn back. There is not real time for such moves. White will play e3 is very good, and a3 is very good. So black should capture on c5, take, check, and now two moves are possible. Bishop d2 and queen d2. Bishop d2 is a more attacking move, but I have both moves here, some sequence of moves with e3, and then almost by force, you get such an endgame here with a pair of bishops. It is similar, but I prefer this line. This has been played in countless games. Queen here, black takes, and e3. This is my choice, and this is very important for you. Not every time it's tiring and uninteresting to play every time full main line with all the pieces in the board and all this. No, it is very good and instructive, especially for players without much experience, to have in their repertoire lines which directly lead to an endgame, a good endgame, not a bad endgame. So d takes e3. This is not good enough. We take with the knight, we take with the queen, and here we have a pawn up, which even if we would sacrifice this pawn, which we do not intend to do so easily, the position would be open for the pair of bishops, and again we have an advantage. So the best move for black is this: queen takes, takes, and takes. Many games have been played from this position. Black plays knight g to e7 or knight f6, or pretty much he can play other moves as well. This is the most common because from f6 the knight can go from e7 can go to d5 and to f5. Black can also play a move like this. Let's clarify that after this move, the simplest choice for white is this, and then white is slightly better with a pair of bishops. Let's check. For example, take, we are threatening g7. Here I would play f3. Let's say here, okay, here I can even take on a7, but let's say we play such a simple position with our king here and our bishop here, for example, or on b5, and we have the pair of bishops, a nice advantage. We will keep this advantage as long as possible, and we are playing what we call a risk-free game. For example, he goes here, we can play here, or maybe cause some weaknesses, because this bishop a6 check can be useful. And here we keep the pair of bishops. We will play for many moves, of course. The game is not over, the game has just started. Rook a to c1, rook f to d1, g4, h4, we take space. And if you call this position difficult to win, you can also call it difficult to win for white. You can also call it difficult for black to make a draw. So all good players are very happy to play such a position, especially against a strong opponent with the black pieces. So bishop takes. Now there is a little bit of theory, let's say. For example, after knight f6, bishop c4 is playable and bishop b5 is playable. Let's say bishop c4. We are ready, after such a move, you will see such an example, to exchange here and to castle. Then we have some small but considerable advantage. You will see some games like that. And it's not at all for black to make a draw here. And it's, of course, impossible to win. Why? We can use the fourth rank. This will go here. The other rook will go here. We want to start attacking with pawns b4, a4, or with such moves here. And we don't want to trade knights just like that. No, we want to keep the knights on the board. For example, this knight on c6 is dominated by our pieces. It cannot go anywhere, so it's pointless to exchange it. And we play for many moves, a very nice, I would say, risk-free game, and we try to win. What is the computer evaluation here? Plus 0.35, plus 0.40, plus 0.20. Yes. So, by the way, after such a move, the computer is not worried even about bishop takes f3. For example, such a move is considered good because here pair of bishops is very, very strong. However, this position is kind of impractical, and I wouldn't advise you to play like that, although white has some advantage. In these lectures, quite often it will be about endgames, as you will see, and not about concrete theory. So take, queen takes. Let's check knight g7, bishop c4. I like also this move, bishop here, provoking possibly a6, and then we go bishop c4. If a6, then we go bishop c4. And if b5, I believe all these moves are more weaknesses than strengths. For example, such a move, he castles, we castle short, and here a million moves can be played. This is quite a typical move. And of course, we can even play this. We have a very nice risk-free game. We will play for several moves here, torturing our opponent and playing for a win. So bishop c4, let's check a few games. This has been played a few times, and now look, we take it, and knight g5, very strong move. And if you can believe, this is losing by force, king d7. We castle long here, and we play this. We have ideas to take on e6. At this moment, we are threatening to take on e6. For example, here, king b1, h6, black cannot protect like this because he will lose h7 pawn. h6, look, white is winning. Takes, takes, not bishop f4 check. If we give this check, we just lost. King f5. We give this check. If he moves back, we take the knight on d5. And of course, if he plays here, we return and win a pawn, and we win the game very fast. So after this bishop c4, things are not so easy for black. If bishop e6, we take it, knight g5, he needs, king d7 is losing, as we saw, he needs to play this move, and now white has a very nice advantage. For example, we can castle long. Our knight can go at a good moment either to e4 or to e6, of course, and we play a risk-free game. I love to play such positions. You need to learn how to play such positions. How can you do that? Firstly, by playing. Let's check now 1 or 2 games here, or 3. So save, yes, okay. We quickly enter this endgame by force, if I may say, and we are trying to win. Let me find the game. It's this game this game was played in 1996 between Grandmaster Lugovoy Alexei and Kik Kale. White has a rating of 2500 and black has a rating of 2370. Let's check what happened. Different move order, don't pay attention. So dc5, here knight a4, and why not to play this endgame? Here there are extremely few losses by white here. You can find in the database 2 or 3 losses, for example, for white, and 20 wins. So, and of course some draws. Bishop e6 was played here. So black can, what can white play? Let's talk about it for a minute. What is the theory here? There is no theory. What can white play? Very good. Many possibilities. Bishop b5. And after bishop b5, we may even have ideas to take on c6. Knight d4. I like it very much. What is the computer saying here? We don't know, and we don't care. We cannot know everything. Knight d4 was played in the game. There are some other possibilities. I liked as an idea this move very much. This is a very deep move, but sometimes it's not good tactically. What is the idea? The idea is to castle long and play king b2. Our king is very strong on b2, ready to enter the battle, but it appears to be a bit slow. So white played knight d4, black played here, and white took on e6. This is very good. If black takes, then we have a nice advantage. We take here. Shall I take on f6? I wouldn't say so. It appears to be very drawish, but this can be playable. Here, here. Yes, now, of course, we can go back, but taking here and taking here, this is interesting. may still be, no, this is interesting. No, when rook d3, who would like to play this position with black? Nobody is the answer. Yes. So this is a risk-free, nice game, and even the pawn endgame has chances for white if we activate our king fast. So nobody wants to play this with black. Let's see what happened very fast. White took on e6. He castled long here. Bishop c5. He calculated here. Yes, rook c8, king b1. He calculated there is no good discovery. So here, bishop e2. If it was white to move, he does want to play this. This is an important move to provoke g6. Here, bishop d4. Here, he gave it. Yes, check. Oh yes, black cannot even play g6. And check. And here, very annoying little moves by white. Look how he keeps the pair of bishops until the very good moment. And in the end, here, black resigned immediately. It seems that black is losing by force. If he moves the rook, there is bishop c5. And if here, take, and obviously take. So that was a nice and fast win. Let's check one or two more games. I like games of old masters. Rainer Knaak, famous grandmaster, and Pettersson Margeir in Novi Sad Olympiad 1990. So here, let's go fast. dc5, d4. We will be more than happy to enter this endgame. Here, black played this double question mark, losing by force. Check, here, rook, here, and no matter what, this is winning. Rook takes, look, this is winning. Rook e5, of course, he could even take here. Yes, in the end, white won. Save, okay. You will check a few more games I have here, which are already good enough for you to have a wonderful repertoire against the Tarrasch with knight c6. Let us now check this line. Take ed5, knight f3, and an entirely different move than knight c6 is knight f6 here. Knight f6. So after knight f6, in my view, this is very dubious move. White has good chances for an advantage. We play bishop here, and bishop e6 is pretty much only move. This is bad. We can take on f6 or simply take on d4. Look, this is a lovely position to play because, in a few words, black has an isolated pawn, but he doesn't have an attack against his king. He cannot place his bishop here and attack because this bishop is pressurizing the center. And in the long run, even if he plays bishop d6, we can go here and exchange it. This is a very different story than this. Here, black has a better play than before. This is a typical isolated pawn position. His bishop will go to d6 eventually and target our king. But with a bishop on g5, this is a different story. So after bishop g5, this is supposed to be the best move. And now there are several possibilities. For example, e4. What is wrong with e4? Too much analysis for no good reason. Too much analysis. There is a much better move, nice and simple. The correct move is d takes c5. This g3 is also playable, good, but too much analysis. This is nice and simple. This is how we play chess. D takes c5. We don't enter endless analysis for no good reason. All players, even top players, whenever it is possible, they prefer to avoid it and play this nice and simple move, just like Carlsen played here. Bishop takes and e3. What we need to know is that white here has one plan, one main plan. Of course, he calculates if he has chances to get some kind of an advantage, big advantage, but what is his plan? To stop d5, d4 forever. If this move is stopped, black is always worse. For example, knight c6, we play bishop b5. He castles, we castle short, and this is a very nice position. Can black play d4? No, because we have knight e4. Yes, d4 is not at all good. And now look at this. Here, this is already a mistake. If you don't know theory, you can play bishop h4, but This is a very typical idea in this type of isolated pawn. Transformation of the advantage. He has to take on b2, otherwise he will be a pawn down. And now look at this. We play knight c7, protecting the bishop on b5 and threatening the bishop on e6 and the rook, of course. He goes here. We threaten the queen. Look, we win some tempi. We take here. We take here intermediate move. He takes, and this is a huge advantage for white here. We can play either bishop c4 or just take on c6. So this is a huge advantage. This is by no means equal. e6 is very weak. The queen side is very weak. And we don't just have isolated pawns. We don't just have opposite color bishop. We have opposite color bishops and many other pieces. Yes. So this is not a draw. This is a win without a fight, in fact. So instead of bishop c4, this is also good enough to take here and block this pawn. h3 is the best move according to the computer. We bring our pieces here, we block this passed pawn, and we start attacking on a7, c5, and e6. White has a very nice advantage. Of course, our king very soon will be on e2, protecting everything. Look, this bishop is very impotent here. It is moving up and down without a clear target, without being able to really improve. If we tell to black, move this bishop 5 times without capturing pieces, he cannot seriously improve its position. You know, he can put it on b4, it's pointless. On b6, again, pointless. So we go back and we are here. After knight c6, bishop b5, castles, castles. Let's suppose he plays this move, a6. We will be very happy, in fact, to take here. And now many moves lead to an advantage. For example, this move, rook c1, he goes here, and knight a4. Yes, typical play. We block there, we will play knight d4, such moves, and we are better. Even this is better for white. We go here, look at this move, and if he takes, of course we take with the queen, yes, and then we take on f6, but even this is a nice advantage for white. Even this. And then we will play knight a4, knight c5, and black is under big pressure without real counterplay. I wish every time I could have such a position with white, yes? So very impractical position for black to play. For example, I also analyzed this move just a little bit. We can play rook c1, knight d4, bishop a4 intending bishop b3, h3 here. All these moves are playable. For example, this and bishop to b3. Typically, we are not worried at all to give this bishop. We are not worried at all because now we have very good control of d4 square. And anyway, we didn't have an attack against his king. This light square bishop is meant to attack the black king. But when black has an isolated pawn, white doesn't have an attack by definition. So we are not interested to preserve this bishop. We happily exchange it for a knight. We block central squares. We put our pieces in the center and we torture our opponent and eventually we win. So the simplest idea after bishop g5 and here is to take on c5 and play e3. If the computer plays like 20 precise moves in a row, he may equalize somehow. I don't even know how, but I imagine, yes. Otherwise, we would say white is clearly better or winning. None of these things is happening. With perfect play, it is still a draw, of course. Chess is a draw, but this is good enough. This is how you should think. There is no d4, and so we are better. I tried several moves like rook c8. This appears to be the best move. And now rook c1, white is better. Queen e2, white is better. h3, a3, all these moves. After all these moves, white is better. For example, let's say I play this move. Yes, again, there is no d4. He plays this, bishop h4. And we put the pieces in the center. Again, the main characteristics of the position remain, which means what? He has an isolated pawn. He doesn't have an attack against our king. At any moment, we may transform the advantage by taking here at a good moment and give him central parallel hanging pawns. And white is still better with queen e2 or a move like rook c1, very natural. for example, bishop e7. Let's check this move again. Who will tell us what to play here after this loss of time? Time to ask the audience. The simplest solution is, of course, to take on c6. Maybe there are other moves as well. And if rook takes, this is very strong. Here, take, and queen takes, because this is really horrible. He has to take with the queen, and this is a lost endgame. So knight d4. But according to the computer, also this is very good. Yes, this is some strange calculation. If this is very good, if we are a very strong player, if we are very strong players, we can even calculate that. Yes. So here, and if he takes with a b pawn, again, white is better with a move like knight a4, for example, or even with a move like knight d4, knight d4. Possibly even this is good enough. Only the computer can hold this position, and possibly not even the computer. So we are better, and this is the way to play. There are very few games in this line in my database. I have one. I have a few. For example, the game. Just a second. This game between. This is a blitz game between Vidit and Naval Gund. So here, coming from a different move order, knight c3. This is not our move order because there are a million possibilities here, which Vidit happens to know them all. Our move order is cd5 here, if we reach this position heading for a Torre opening. Yes. So bishop g5, bishop e6, and e3 he played. Now black can play c4. I don't agree with this move order. Here, this is quite good. So black obviously didn't know it, and now he takes, and he plays bishop e2. Bishop b5 would have been better. But anyway, black can possibly play, like, for example, this. Maybe if he plays very precise moves, here 94 is a typical sequence of moves in the isolated pawn, or maybe here, and he can kind of maybe equalize. He played this. He hesitated. Now, what is the verdict? Black cannot play d4. Black cannot equalize. Rook c1. Here, just some careful moves are needed. a3. You see, in fact, white is not at all in a hurry because black doesn't know what to do. So here, knight b5. Later, he controlled this square typically, and he changed this advantage. Remember, with the isolated pawn taking on e6, this bishop quite often is a very good idea. Quite often, transforming the advantage like that. Remember this idea. Quite often, with a knight on d4, we want to take on e6. He doesn't have isolated pawn anymore, but he has weaknesses. So now for something else. Enough with the Tarrasch opening. Now we will see the Queen's Gambit accepted. This is an entirely playable opening, a little bit passive. The best move theoretically is this, in a theoretical sense, but too much theory, if I may say, for no good reason. That's why I chose once again another variation, again very common, which leads directly to an endgame. So here we play e3. We start with knight f3. I prefer this move. There is also e3 directly, but I prefer to start with knight f3 here, and then e3. By the way, the Queen's Gambit accepted is not a gambit. White gains the pawn back by force in all cases. That's why black is not interested to keep it. All these lines like b4 do not really exist here. They exist, but they offer white some advantage after b3. So we will gain the pawn back. Yes, it's not a real gambit. Do not be afraid. So after e3, there are some lines like bishop g4, which are not considered very good. Let's stick with the main line just to gain some time. So bishop takes c4, c5, we castle. And now, surprisingly, even players who have been playing the Queen's Gambit their whole life do not know. And what is the main line here? I mean, what is black's more common move? Who knows what is black's more common move here? The most common move is a6. They play a6, even players who play the Queen's Gambit the whole time, and they don't know why. What is wrong with knight c6, for example? The answer is very, very difficult and very deep. Let's check what is wrong, not in terms of single moves, of course, not this mistake, but in terms of plans. So let's see what is wrong with queen c6, with knight c6. We play queen here. He needs to take. We play rook d1. He plays here. Let's see what happens. E takes d4 and here. So this is a typical isolated pawn. Let me repeat, what does typical isolated pawn mean? It means d4 weak pawn for white with all the pieces in the board, or d5 pawn for black. And when is the isolated pawn good for us and when is it bad for us? It depends entirely on tempi and on how the pieces are developed. So here there is a very unique and rare idea. We play here and we start having threats with d5. For example, this is not possible. We play here. So the correct move is this to block. And now we play knight e5. And if you can believe, the entire concept by black is wrong due to some very deep idea, which says that, for example, here, in the typical isolated pawn, whenever we can cross the third rank with our rook without blundering, white is always better with a rook on d3 or a rook on e3 if it was possible. So the main reason is a mixture between tactics and tactical and strategical threats. This is really magical, very rare occurrence in chess. And with all these tactical threats, we managed to put our rook on d3 very fast and attack. There have been some games like that which ended very fast. Rook to g3, we are threatening bishop h6. After this, we automatically play here and bishop is coming to d3. And after g6, there are many good moves. I can show you the best line is this, and bishop d3. And I really enjoy this line, also coming from a queen's gambit accepted. White is winning by force. We sacrifice first the bishop, then the knight, and then we play queen d3, and this is winning by force. So all these are not variations by that are winning. I mean, white is not winning in this line, but he has very dangerous attacking possibilities. So because he can cross by a mixture of tactical and strategical threats, he can cross the third line. He can cross the third line with his rook. So if they ask here, why is knight c6 a mistake? Because of rook d3 is the answer. Very difficult. Even players who play the queen's gambit regularly with black and white do not know that. So after knight c6, the position is such that we go rook d1, rook d3 very fast. Black can avoid this line after knight c3. Instead of playing knight b4, he can play this move. However, this move after bishop d3, this move has a big disadvantage. In this typical isolated pawn, it sends the knight at the edge of the board. For example, here we jump knight e5, we play typical moves. We always keep the rook d3 idea in our mind. And sometimes even transferring the queen along the third rank is also very good and effective. But if I may say, not so effective as the rook lift. So we play knight e5. And for example, he plays a move like this. We play bishop c2. He plays here. These are just moves from my mind. A3 because this is coming. A3. I don't know what he plays. I cannot get it by force. So here, and our opponent all of a sudden releases the pressure, and this is game over. Rook g3. Okay. So that's this is why black cannot. It's not advisable for him to play knight c6. So they play this move, a6. And now we enter this endgame. I really, really like this endgame, this position. You can put the pieces in several different ways. The most common idea is this. Then the bishop is coming here, and we move both of our knights, either to b3 or to c4. Let's check them through some nice games. So here we are. Let's check the game between Bareev and Shirov. Old game, very instructive game very instructive win by white. So a6, dc5, a lovely line to play, not for a draw, but for a win. Knight bd2, or you can start with bishop e2 first, or you can improvise, even b3 is playable, but let's have a plan of action. b6 was played. If, for example, here we go to e2, and if here we have this a4 idea, and black has weaknesses, no matter if he takes or he plays here. Now we can play knight c4 or knight b3, and in the long run, our plan quite often is to play, without blundering, to play f3, e4, and bishop e3. Such positions with the bishop on e3 and the king on e2 are always much better for white, even if we exchange the bishops. Always much better, because black has many weaknesses. So we check again. Not much theory is required. Knight bd2, bishop e2, knight c4 we play. For example, here, bishop e2. Next move is knight c4, sometimes even knight b3. For example, here, knight c4. A very nice and common idea is also this, knight e1, and knight is coming to d3. All these are very nice lines, very easy for white to play. We exert pressure on the queen side. We want to put the bishop on f3 in the long run, and we have a nice risk-free advantage. We go back to check this game. Here, b6 was played, and look at white's maneuvering. Here, knight c4, knight d4, and knight b3. Our plan is to dislocate this bishop, to send it away, and then to play f3 and e4 with a big advantage. Here we are, f3 and e4. How about this, for example, this b5 move? We always go here. Yes, there is absolutely no problem. And how about such a move? We simply play e4 with a very big advantage. e4 and bishop e3 here. Whenever we can do this, look here and here, we play king f2. All these a6, b6 pawns are weak. If he plays a5, he makes weaknesses, he creates weaknesses. If he plays b5, he creates other weaknesses. We bring our king here, we are out of book, and we have very good winning chances. In my view, Shirov made the wrong choice to play the Queen's Gambit accepted. This is an old game played in 2000. He had in his repertoire much better choices, much more active. So here, this trick, bishop e3, king f2, consolidating, and black needs to fight to save his weaknesses on the king side. You will see the rest of the game by yourself. Let's check another game between Karpov and Kramnik with white, Karpov with black. So takes, c5, castle, a6, and again this lovely line. Takes, bishop takes c5, knight bd2 or bishop e2 first. Many ways for black to develop his pieces. b6 was played again. Bishop e2, you need to remember, bishop e2, knight c4, knight d4, knight b3. And in the end, f3, e4. You need to find some way to play f3 and e4. So here, knight c4. And another move to remember is this, another idea to remember. Is this theory here? Absolutely not. We are already out of book. b3, white has a small advantage. He played this and bishop b2, and now the bishop on c5 has a problem. Here, knight is coming to d3, chasing the bishop. Here, other problems are created, and in the end, white won after some very nice moves. Of course, you will check the game by yourself. We check another game now. I have also a couple of very good games. So castles here, dc5. We go here, knight bd2. Some minor alternatives, you will see them in the PGN. So here, bishop e2 once again. Here, he played knight e1, knight d3 is good now because this bishop is running out of squares. And if bishop here, let me remind you, we play knight c4. For example, here, knight d4, castles, knight b3, here, and finally, f3 and e4. Here we are, e4. Yes, and bishop is coming to e3. Black will soon be forced to play something like this, And here, white has a huge advantage. Don't worry, we won't lose the knight on a5. Here, at some moment, we may play a4. We may play my favorite move, which is this one. And we are much better. Black is suffering. Even his king is very far away from the action on the queen side. Let's check how they played. So here, knight e5 to go to d3 or knight e1. Here, knight d3, very typical. Knight c4, very typical. And b3 intending bishop a3 check. This is another little idea to remember. You need to remember 3-4 basic ideas, and here we are. And then you enjoy the game. The difficult thing would be what to suggest with black against this plan. So it's not always f3 and e4. Whenever we can conquer this diagonal, we do it with bishop a3. And white won after many moves. Let me show you also one of my games. So c4, he takes, e3, I take, c5, castle, h6, I take on c5. He takes on c5 immediately. This is pretty much the same position, more or less the same. So no theory, but typical ideas. For example, here, bishop e2. Here, I see his bishop running out of squares in the diagonal. I see king e7, bishop c5. He is running out of squares. So what is my move, please? Who will answer very fast? When I see bishop c5, king e7, his bishop is running out of squares. So the move is knight to e1, then knight to e3, and if bishop d6, let's check. Here, knight d3, here, the same idea. Knight c4, bishop here, b3, and the bishop is coming to a3 with a big advantage for white again. I played this, I gained a pair of bishops later, and I won the game. Our philosophy this time is to play endgames whenever it is possible. So, which is my favorite one, my favorite strategy for me. Not all the time, of course, not in every opening, but after a6, you may have also some secondary line like queen e2, rook e1 with all the pieces in the board. You may have this line and nevertheless play dc5. Takes. Here, bishop e2 or knight bd2. Here, can I play b3 here or a3? Yes, I can. Nothing will happen, but I should better follow this plan to chase this bishop away from c5 and then play f3, e4. So knight bd2, here a3 this time. Yes, this knight c6 was a bit clumsy. He played a5. Black, look, black has so many problems. For example, here we play b4. Here we play bishop b2. This is coming to c4. Black has really many problems. Here, knight c4. Yes, the positions are very good for white and very easy to play. So after knight c6, clumsy move, we were expecting this, and then knight c4, knight d4. Clumsy move, a3 is possible. How about this move? Here, once again, I see his bishop from c5 having a problem connected with his king. I will play knight e1, or even better, knight here. He goes here, knight d3. He goes here, knight c4. He goes here, b3, and bishop a3 check with a very nice initiative in the end game, which you will, trust me, you will enjoy very, very much. And so, with this very clever and fast repertoire against the queen's gambit accepted, we finish our study of these lines and now last part of the session is left. We study all possibilities in the Tarrasch, which they do require some memorization, and most importantly, we studied the way how we should think in various positions, because chess is endless and you will get to a new position, to an unknown position sooner or later. This is for sure. So it's not possible, and it's not in our mind to predict every possible move by our opponent. That is a total waste of time, and not even top grandmasters in the world do that. I think we have a very nice repertoire. It requires from you to study, to memorize a few things, to understand a few things, to see games, extra games in the database, and of course, the most important thing, we will also study this minor line very fast. This d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c6. Yes. So I would like to thank you all for your participation, and I will see you in half an hour. Bye for now. We will see each other soon.